I just want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is our third session of our 2021 Women and Girls Empowerment webinar series, which is hosted by us, the Women's Foundation of Boston. So thank you all for joining us. As you probably noticed, will be recorded for those, so we can share for those attendees who couldn't join us. Hi, I'm Christina Gordon. I am the CEO of the Women's Foundation of Boston. I am thrilled to be moderating today's fascinating and inspiring webinar, which is titled A Day in the Life of a Woman in Tech, of Women in Tech, sorry. We are so excited to have the Hitachi Vantara team with us. Alex Johnson from Hitachi Vantara is the Senior Program Manager for Global Learning at the international technology company Hitachi Vantara. Together with her colleagues, Kimberly Reed, Millie Gurung, I hope I'm saying that right, Tammy, Welchman, and Susan McLeod, they will discuss today their diverse backgrounds, career journeys, and the skills needed to really succeed in a variety of roles at an industry-leading technology company. The panelists represent engineering, digital enterprise solutions, product strategy, services and support, and global learning, with positions varying from individual contributors to vice presidents. So it's a super exciting and diverse panel. So we're really ready to start. Just briefly, for those of you who are new to our organization, the Women's Foundation of Boston economically empowers Greater Boston women and girls. We do that through funding and creating really high impact leadership and economic programs in partnership with nonprofits that are solely serving women and girls. The Women's Foundation of Boston was founded in 2017 to fill the gap of the massive underinvestment in women and girls nationally as well as locally, discovering that only 1.6% of all US philanthropic giving is directed towards women and girls serving nonprofits, and that 40% of that is sent overseas. The founders were really motivated to address this shocking philanthropic void. As businesswomen, the Women's Foundation of Boston volunteers and co-founders apply their investment and strategic lens to creating and managing our organization and to our granting. Our exclusive focus on economic empowerment is very, very intentional because, one, when a woman's economic status improves, all of her life variables go up, as well as for her children. And two, women reinvest about 90% of their incomes back into their families and communities, creating a multiplier effect. And three, as businesswomen, we are highly confident at evaluating the economic viability of projects and nonprofits. The Women's Foundation Boston has committed close to $3 million in grants to women and girls serving nonprofits since inception. We have impacted over 9,000 women and girls in Greater Boston by empowering them to become more financially independent agents and to become independent agents of their own lives. Our all-volunteer organization, well, we have one paid employee now, a part-time paid employee, which is exciting, but everyone else is volunteer. We have over 110 high-powered women and men helping us continue to expand. We've become the go-to organization for women and girls issues in Greater Boston, and we are proud to fill that important role, as it was a gaping hole that desperately needed to be addressed. So that's our story. And now let's move on to the more exciting topic of a day in the life of women in tech. So I'm going to hand it over to Alex.
All right, thank you, Christina. I am going to share with all of you. All right. Someone tell me that this is coming through correctly. Great. Okay. Thank you, Christina. We are really excited to be here. I've heard you talk about your organization before, but hearing it again makes me even more excited to be here today. So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining the webinar. My colleagues and I are really excited to take you through what a day in our life looks like, what our roles are, what we do, and our journey of really how we got there. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you all a little bit more about Hitachi. Maybe I'll tell you all a little bit more. I will. Okay, great. So Hitachi is a global company. We have over 4,500 employees in 48 countries, and data is our world. Data is what we do. I am not sure if you can see my little panel slide here. I'm going to move that right over just in case you can. Okay. So data is our world, like I was saying. We help companies store, manage, and understand their data to ultimately make better business decisions. Data is everywhere. Data is all over the place, and there's a lot of it. Data is on your phone. People have data plans. Data is in your GPS, helping you get where you're going. Data is coming at you very strong when you Google something, right? There's a list of all these different things that you can look at. So just like us sometimes being overwhelmed by data, companies are too. They have a lot of data that comes in at them, and that's what we help to solve for them, is how do they take all this data together, look at it in a way that they can understand, and then ultimately make decisions on how to run their business better for their customers and for themselves so that they're successful. So who is on our team? We have multiple organizations in Hitachi that make up our company. We have engineering, sales, global learning, marketing, customer support, legal, human resources, and services. So all of these different pieces of the business ultimately come together and help our customers manage their data. Okay, so before we get into what we all specifically do, I wanted to kind of take a real world example of how Hitachi might actually help a business make those better decisions. So I'm sure that all of you have had some type of a shopping experience before. I figured I would use a retail environment as my example. For you, when you go shopping, it's pretty seamless, right? You walk into a store, you look at the merchandise, you pick out what you want, you stand in line, you buy it, and then you leave the store. Where Hitachi might come in and actually help that business owner make better decisions is by leveraging technology. So we have technology that counts how many people come in and out of the store. We have technology that shows where are the different hot spots in a store, right? Where are people lingering and for how long, and what are they looking at, right? How do you determine as a business owner where you want to put your merchandise so that it's really front and center where people tend to want to be? We have analytics that pull together to show your inventory levels. So what are people buying? What should go into that hot spot, right? What's really popular and when do you need to order it? How much do you need to have of that? When people are standing in line, we have technology that shows how long those lines are. That directly influences staffing, right? How many people do you want to have working your registers or on your sales floor or just there to talk to customers, right, at a given time to really help people kind of get in and out the door? And then when you pay for something, there's a lot of data that's involved there, right? Not just maybe your credit card information, but emails, phone numbers, you know, your personal information in some way. Maybe you're part of a loyalty program. Where does all of that go? We have technology that stores and protects that data so that it's not just out there in the open world. And then of course, when you leave the store, again, technology that's counting. How long was somebody in a store for, right? How long and how many people at a given time of day are there? Again, that really influences your staffing levels and what you want to make sure you're doing. So all of this data comes together to kind of create this seamless experience for us as the customer, but that's where Hitachi can really come in for the business owner and say, okay, here's a dashboard or some reports and analytics that you can look at to actually make the most money, but also create that really good customer experience for all of your people. So that is a real world example. And now I just want to introduce you very quickly to our panelists here. Kimberly, Millie, Tammy, Susan, and myself will go through with you a little bit of our personal background, how we got into technology, what are some of the skill sets that we have and that are pertaining to our roles and what part of the business we work in, and then some key takeaways. So with that, I will hand it over to Kimberly. Stop sharing here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Reed. I have been working in technology now for, I hate to say this, but this August it'll be 23 years. And before that, I spent 11 years in industry working as a chemical engineer. So when you ask me about my background, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I grew up in the city, so people joke if I tell them I grew up in the hood. I'm actually a product of my dad's a police officer, my mom was an executive assistant, and they wanted me to go to college. And so they put me in a program for pre-college engineering, and it was called DAPSEP, Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program. And I was trapped in that program from the time I was in 7th grade until I was 34 years old. And I had an opportunity to meet engineers, didn't really know what engineers did, but I remember in one workshop when they said, I asked a question, how much do chemical engineers make? And then this guy from Dow Chemical said, well, I won't tell you my exact salary, but here's the range. And I remember in 7th grade when I said, that's the job I want. So I went to the University of Michigan. I studied chemical engineering. In my program, there are about 5 women in my graduating class of 40. Those same people I graduated with actually some of them went to my high school. I got my master's degree in business from Canisius College. And I would say that going through the MBA program taught me a lot about business software and systems. And it really expanded my understanding of what a chemical engineer does is scale up chemistry to make it in a plant at large quantities. But then when you get into business management and understanding how companies function, I really got interested in all the different business processes that allow a company to purchase goods and sell services and manufacture and maintain their equipment. And after 11 years of working as an engineer, walking around a plant with steel-toed boots, a hard hat, and safety glasses, I thought maybe a career change would be good. And my company was implementing this software product called SAP. And 23 years ago, SAP changed my life because I learned about the software. I helped implement it at my chemical company, and I decided I wanted to be a consultant who helped other companies implement SAP software. So what I did was I became a consultant in the software that I had helped my company implement. And as I went through the process of learning how to implement software to help people learn how to do their jobs better, more efficiently, with the right information to know the profitability of their business and to be able to handle challenges that might come up, what I learned is that going from a chemical engineer to a consultant, I never really dreamed that one day I would be a vice president. It wasn't even on my radar. I just really liked helping people and solving problems. And so now I'm a vice president and I run a practice of about 55 people. They all implement the software like I do. We help clients in a variety of different industries. Today, I was telling the panelists that I'm in Michigan. It's one of my first trips since the pandemic, and I'm working with a company that makes robotic assembly lines for like Amazon or other companies. They even make automated robotic systems that run amusement park rides. And we got a tour of their facility. So I'm here helping them because they're launching a project to implement this software called SAP. And just earlier this week, I was working with a client who makes grills for like outdoor grilling. And their business has been booming during the pandemic. And the irony of my job and why I love it so much is my other clients, one of them remediates nuclear waste. So they use this SAP software too. I work with a client who grows plants. They get the seeds and they grow the plants, and you wouldn't imagine the complex algorithms that go into predicting how much a plant will grow in transit from the farm to the Home Depot site where you can buy fresh flowers. Again, they use SAP software. And one of my other clients, they're a private soup, sauce, and bean manufacturer. Again, I had to learn about how you make canned chili in a manufacturing line. Who knew there's such a complex recipe? But that's what they do, and they private label for Walmart. So when you buy the Walmart brand of soup in the store, that company uses the software that I work with, that I've been working with for 23 years to make private label Walmart soup and Kroger private label soup. I would say that the key things that I've learned in my role is that there are people skills that you need to have, and that involves skills like emotional intelligence, being self-aware of your emotions and having self-control, and having empathy to put yourself in another's shoes, being able to have self-motivation when others don't believe in you, staying motivated. My humanities professor in college said, "Why do you want to be an engineer? Why don't you just find a good husband?" That's what I've faced over the years, and I've learned that emotional intelligence and social skills are so important, specifically for what I do. Now I've shared with people that I'm an introvert, so being an extrovert has taken a lot of practice and a lot of learning and putting myself into uncomfortable situations. But I would say that being able to have good conflict resolution skills, critical thinking and problem solving, and handling bullies is another great skill when you're especially a woman in leadership. And so my advice or takeaways to the group today would be always have a good attitude, because your attitude will determine your altitude in life. And I've had the opportunity to have great mentors and advocates who have helped me throughout my career. I've had great leaders who've told me how to ask for a raise, how to value yourself and get what you're worth, and how to be a go-to person, how to take responsibility when you make a mistake, and being courageous, maybe taking calculated risk and not being afraid to fail. Fear is one of those things that I've noticed throughout my career. Fear can hold you back. Fear can drive bad behavior by people. But when you understand people and you know that sometimes it's fear that's making them behave badly sometimes or behave in a certain way, you can pretty much manage anything and work with just about anyone. So that's why I say keeping a positive attitude and being able to take calculated risk, even if you might fail, is important. And one of my mentors, I'll close with, he actually told me one day when I thought I was going to get fired because of what I said to our leadership team about the changes we need to make. He came up to me and he said, "I'm proud of you. No risk, no reward." And I've used that mantra going forward in my career. So I'm going to hand it over to Millie, and maybe you'll have some questions for us later. So Millie, take it away. And maybe Millie, are you there?
I think Millie is frozen on my side. Let's
Uh-oh.
kick it over to Tammy and we'll come back to Millie.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. I am Tammy Welchman. I'm originally from Illinois, south part, quite a bit south of Chicago. And one of the things about myself is my dad was an electrical engineer. We moved around quite a bit as I was growing up. And one of the places we got to live when I was 7 years old was Taiwan. Part of who I am today comes from being in different cultures, meeting different people, and just loving to understand people and getting to know them. So go forward a little bit. My dad being an electrical engineer, and I worked with my dad on all kinds of projects and putting in sprinkler systems and handing him the tools. I love that part of life. I didn't want to be an electrical engineer, but I wanted to be somewhere in the tech industry. I always knew I was going to go to college, but I wasn't sure what that was going to look like. Well, one of the moves we made later on was to San Diego. And I went my senior year, I was new in the school. I took a basic programming class. That's a long time ago, I will say, but it changed my life. That class, I found a love and a passion for something I didn't even know existed. This is back before, there were things like system administration and networking. That wasn't a degree plan. So I went to University of San Diego, or University of California, San Diego, and I got a computer science degree. And that degree was to program. Well, by the time I finished, it wasn't exactly the thing I wanted to do. And this is one of my points I'm going to make. I did interviewing and I got a job at General Dynamics. I got to be a system administrator, not a programmer. So I still got the technology of keeping the machines running, loading operating systems. And I sat in the middle of the customers. We launched rockets. One of my passions in life has been space. All my life, if I could do a report on space stations, I did. Absolutely love that. But by doing that, I got in the middle of the customer. We're launching rockets. I actually took care of the machines that did the first 100 seconds of the launch and working with them. Going forward, I also worked on the Joint Strike Fighter program, F-35 fighter jet. Again, sitting right in the middle of my customers, loving all of that. And one of the things I was kind of an introvert as well, but in the process of sitting with my customers and developing my communication skills, I found a true passion for everything in IT tech. One of the things you learn real quickly is there are a lot of different legs to it. You can go networking, you can go customer service, you can go to the help desk. I loved system administration. I took care of all the gamuts, working with all the other groups. But I had an opportunity to come to Hitachi. And when I did that, I was a pre-sales customer engineer. So I got to go to the customers, showing them our products, helping them with their solutions. And I was in my heyday. You know, you're going to all these different customers and you're finding out what they're doing with technology. And I got to be right there with them, communication, fixing their issues, showing them how the product works. It was super fun. I am one of the people who have come into the industry with a computer science degree and since got my master's in telecom and computer information systems, and have stayed in the technology side of things. I've not gone into the management side. I've stayed with technology, learning over 30 years of technology and sticking with it. But really one of the big things is I've learned is I succeed by my customers succeeding, by being out there and helping them, providing solutions, listening. That's a huge asset. Listen to what they say and help them with the solution and be part of a team. You know, there's a lot of individuals, but at the end of the day, we're all a team. We're all trying to succeed and go forward. And it's so interesting. One of the things I love F1 in IoT is kind of interesting. It's one of the things that we do in our company. But all the information the cars give back to the Mercedes or Ferrari, all that information is being kept in somewhere. Like Alex was talking about all the different things that we can work with. IoT and all that information is stored somewhere and then it's analyzed. So with coming up on my time, I want to just say there's a few things. Use your resources. There's the internet, there's each other, women in business. They're going to be very helpful like us. You know, we love what we do. We love talking about what we do. And, so your resources. And one of the things I find out what you loved. What is your passion? I mentioned I love space. I got lucky and went into space and everything, just kind of continued from there. But at the end of the day, I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do. And I love puzzles and troubleshooting issues. So it's one of the things I've very much enjoyed and love working with these wonderful women here at Hitachi Vantara. And having said that, I see Millie is back online. Thank you very much for your time. So I'm going to pass it over to Millie.
Thank you, Tammy. Good morning, everyone. I apologize, my power went out and I had to quickly hustle and I'm joining in through my iPhone. So hopefully you can all hear me and see me clearly. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining in from. My name is Millie Gurung and I'm a principal product manager at Hitachi Vantara. I originally came from Nepal. I was born and raised and educated in Nepal. I came to US to pursue my higher education. That said, I did my bachelor's and master's in computer science. And I am a technologist at heart. I do have a great passion for technology and also a passion for innovation, helping customers solve problems. So in terms of my sort of career journey and career growth, I started from a very, very technical role. I have about 15 plus years in enterprise software, software as a solution, IoT, this whole product and solution ecosystem. And in terms of Vantara, I've been here for Vantara for about close to 2.5 years. Prior to Vantara, I was at GE Digital for a good 6.5 years. So over this last 15 years, I have really transitioned. I really explored different domains. I originally started with the healthcare domain, and then moved on to library automation, and then moved on to smart manufacturing, and then moved on to oil and gas, both midstream and downstream. And right now I'm heavily focused on energy, specifically around power and utilities. So in saying that, I think the core tenet, in terms of product management, project management, all of that technical skill set, all of that hold true in whatever domains you choose to apply across to, right? So I think when you think of your career trajectory, I didn't think it going just like what Kimberly was saying. I didn't think that I would end up in working in power and utilities. Early on, I did want it to be a software developer. That's how I started my trajectory. And then I quickly realized that I enjoyed working with people. I loved soliciting requirements. I loved understanding what is the pain point you're working on and how can help you make it better. So in the process, I moved on from being, system analyst to business system analyst to technical product management, program management, and product management. So I think, it's been a great journey throughout transitioning, working with different folks, with different stakeholders, and at least for now in Vantara, Hitachi Vantara, I've been primarily focused in understanding, what are the customers facing today? What are some of the key challenges, right? My role requires really setting up the product vision and strategy, which, precursor to that is really interacting with the customers and understanding what their problems and pain points are. And there are so many problems, but you cannot solve it all, right? So it's really identifying, is this a problem worth solving? Is there a market for it? Can you really, create a path to revenue depending upon this customer problem you're trying to solve, and what is the best solution that you can go after, right? So I think making some of that decisions, working with team, and again, this is not something, I can do it on my own. I definitely have to work with a lot of stakeholders in a very sort of a highly matrix environment. Again, I don't have any resources, that I can say, oh, do this for me. So it's a lot of, leading with influence, leading, really, reaching out to the other side of the aisle and working with, with a broad team, whether it's product engineering, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's R&D function, really rallying the team, helping set the vision so that people understand where you're marching towards, right? So when you talk about some of the key skill sets that's required for the job, I think communication, collaboration is definitely a key. And then I would move on to what Kimberly had mentioned earlier, really in terms of applying that critical thinking, mindset, critical thinking hats on. Because of course, there are so many problems you can solve for your customers, but identifying what is the right problem to go after, to really set the North Star for the rest of your team, right? And the third thing I would, at least to be able to effectively do my job, I still need to keep up to the technology. I still need to understand and be able to participate with the solution architect team to help give direction to the product engineering in making key decisions in that respect. So technical skills is still a very it's a requirement in what I do on a daily basis. And in terms of the advice and key takeaways, right? I think three things essentially. Number one is always have that sort of a growth mindset, right? I always myself enjoy working with people who do have carry the attitude of, I want to learn it all versus I know it all kind of person, right? So always be willing to learn, embrace new opportunities. And I give you an example of how I've moved across different industries, and so can you, right? You just want to just move on from one to the next until you are in a place where you find where your true passion lies. Second of all is really around I think I saw some of the questionnaires that came in early, and there was a question around salary negotiations, and I have personally made it my mantra to never accept an offer at the first offer at hand. So over the course of 7 years, I have whether it's an internal a promotion that I'm applying for or external job offer, I know it's a lot of work upfront to be able to, interview 2 or 3 companies, but I've always, made that extra effort initially to make sure that I have 2 or 3 offers so that I can always negotiate and be in the best position. Start with the rate that I'm not having to kind of work backwards on, right? So that's one thing. And then third thing is just know and understand that what got you today may not necessarily get you where you want to be today. My advice to folks is make it a concerted effort, very, very tactically, right? Set aside a 2 hours window every month, maybe a Friday, 10 to 12. Set aside that time for you to learn and understand, take a pause and see how I'm so much in the week today. How can I step back and understand what should be my career trajectory? Who are some of the mentors that I need to rely on? How can I spend maybe next 30 minutes to reach out to my network of supporters and mentors out there to see what options are available out there. So I don't do it myself every month, but I at least do it every quarter. I set aside 2 to 3 hours for me to really understand where am I today and what would take me to move forward. So with that, I think I was supposed to hand it off to Tammy. So maybe the next person I want to hand it off to would be Susan. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions later. Sorry for all this iPhone and no power business here.
Hi, Millie. Thank you. Thank you. So Susan McLeod, and I run the Services and Support Organization for Hitachi Vantara. I've been with Hitachi for now 13 years. Time is flying by when you're having fun, and in the industry for 25 plus years. I've just lost count. So unlike Tammy and Millie and Kimberly, who said, they had a very, I think at a young age, a very focus that they knew they wanted to go into technology and just a passion for that. I'll be honest, for myself, I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So when I was in college, and I'm from North Carolina, so I went to UNC, I really was more focused on what I just was drawn to. So history, communications, marketing, and really the people skills. And at my freshman year, I took a base psychology class, and I had taken some psychology courses in high school as well. And honestly, I just loved it. I loved the people aspect. I loved the behavioral aspects of working with kids and doing different very focused sessions. So I ended up majoring in behavioral psych, and I did minor in Spanish, but majored in behavioral psychology, and I just loved it. Again, I loved the people aspect and the different areas with kids and working with families. And I ended up doing my internship in an adolescent psychiatric ward where I had I did the internship the last quarter, and I got hired on there after college. And I loved it, I have to say. I will tell you, it was much different than I had originally expected, very emotionally exhausting. And anyone that's worked in that field or that space knows you just get drawn into the families and the kids. And it was emotionally a bit exhausting, to say the least. And I was still having to work 2 other jobs to pay my bills. So ultimately, I took a break after about 9 months. and just started temping. And this is how different my path is. I ended up temping, and I started at a startup company. It was a systems integration company. They were hiring someone to come in and work on proposals to do, it was kind of the communications background that I'd have. And ended up working there for about a year and got hired on and absolutely loved it. It was more on the pre-sale side, working on proposals, working with customers. And I ended up staying in that field. And this was a time back when the .com industry was booming. And if you really got in and worked hard and were willing to learn, you could really go and learn anything. So at that point in time, I stayed in that field. I ended up working in marketing for about 5 or 6 years. Ultimately ended up staying in more the pre-sale side of the business, proposal development of the business. And the path just grew from there. I spent a lot of time in, like I said, pre-sales and marketing, ended up getting my PMO certification, did project management, and ultimately just evolved into different roles where I landed in services. And I just absolutely loved the services part of the business. So when you think about services, we're thinking about from Hitachi Vantara aspect, going in and implementing the product, implementing the software solutions, doing migrations, really working with customers to get them on our offerings and our products. So I've been in services now for almost all of my career, and ultimately evolved into the role that I'm in now, where I'm working in field services and took over the support organization about 3 years ago. So it's been an interesting path for me, again, very different than my peers, but it's just where I've landed and how I've landed it. And I think that it's, again, kind of the passion for communication, people, just working with people, working with our customers. Ultimately today, I run an organization of about 1,000 people globally who are installing and implementing all of our products and solutions, and the support organization. And I would say, and you've heard my path, it's very different. I am not deeply technical. I do constantly challenge myself, and I learn, and I'm constantly taking classes. I'm constantly listening into my team's calls and sitting on their very detailed technical discussions with customers just to learn. But my main skill, and I think how I've been able to grow and evolve, is the people side. And Tammy said this, and Kimberly and Millie, it's the listening, it's the communication, it's really fostering that teaming approach. And I think this goes back to my early days and why I was drawn into the psychology aspect. I love working with a team, and I love mentoring a team, and I love empowering that team to be successful. So while I don't necessarily need to be deeply technical, I scare my team, by the way, when I start getting on calls and jumping in and having technology discussions. When I go too deep, they'll send me a text and tell me to hold up. But I try to work with them and set them up for success. So what I've found over 20 plus years at this point is, I think for my passion is really teams and empowering a team and empowering those teams to be successful, and why I've really enjoyed and love what I'm doing today. I think I would say, just as advice to people coming either new to technology, maybe you're just coming out of school, or you're trying to decide what you want to do, or you're shifting career paths, I would say just follow your instincts of what you are passionate about and where you feel you're really strong in. And you can find a way to maneuver yourself around, if you're interested in technology companies, with those aspects. Again, for myself, you don't have to be necessarily an engineer by trade or technically savvy to get into the technology field. You know, there's marketing, there's sales, there's a lot of different aspects of the business that, as long as you're willing to learn and work hard, you know, you can grow into those spaces. So my guidance is, again, teaming, collaboration, and always challenge yourself to learn more, even if you feel that that's maybe not your strength. If it's something you really want to do, and there's an aspect of that business you want to grow into, take that time and just invest, be it in training, certification, or just, as I call, sponging. I love to just listen in on different deeper dive meetings and communications and conference calls, so that I can just learn more. So with that, that's my guidance, and I would love to answer any additional questions that you have. I'm going to turn it over, though, to Alex at this point, so she can walk through her story and journey.
Thanks, Susan. All right, hello again, everyone. So similar to Susan, I do not have a technical background at all, quite the opposite. I am right here in the Boston area. That's where I'm from. Born and raised in Cambridge. I moved to Melrose like 6 months ago. And I have a background in fashion merchandising. I kind of fell into Hitachi by accident in some ways. I graduated college and I had my first baby, and my husband and I decided to stay in Massachusetts. We were planning to move to California. We needed the support from our family, so we stayed, and I realized very quickly that my background in fashion and my experience in retail management was not something that was conducive for raising a family. And so I decided to become an administrative assistant. I figured I'll figure out what I want to do while I do that. And so I got an interview through a recruiter with Hitachi Vantara with their engineering team. I had never met someone in engineering before. I had never worked with anybody in engineering or in technology at all, really. And after my interview, I thought, please let me add some value to this place in some way, because I don't know half of what we were just talking about. And as I spent the couple years that I spent in engineering, I learned that my skill set and my passion, which is people, learning about people, talking to people, helping people navigate through problems or situations or projects that seemed like there were a bunch of dots all over the place that needed to be connected. That's where some of my skill sets were. And that's what I started to really help with starting in engineering, and then as I moved into some other roles. So I had one very pivotal conversation with a manager that I was working with in the engineering department. And she said, you know, I have a set of skills that I put towards anything. What are your natural skills? Refine those. You love people and you're organized and you like being on projects where you can work with all these different types of people. You can take that anywhere into any organization. And from there, I moved to be an executive admin for our chief marketing officer. He left the company after a few years, and I moved into global learning to work for the vice president of global learning, which really means our organization trains all of our customers on how to use our products. And I just loved it. I love working for this particular vice president. She is a very powerful woman who's inspirational and has always really helped me kind of drive towards different directions in my career. And so I started to realize that there were a few areas, even though I had no tech background and I'm still not a super technical person, my value at our technology company is more in the organization and people side of it, right? Helping all of the experts in their different roles come together and collaborate more, work together, and continue to move forward to do business the right way. I know we're a little short on time and I want to be able to get to everybody's questions. So my really quick takeaway for everybody, similar to what all of these ladies have said, is use your resources, kind of develop what I call your army, right? Who are your people that you can rely on, that build you up, that see things in you, and that have become your network, and don't lose touch with them. Connect to as many people as you possibly can, because that's how you're going to most likely get to your next role. You never know who you're going to cross paths with in the future, or what industry you might end up in. So you could be in fashion and then all of a sudden be in technology like me. So anything, sky is the limit for everybody. Christine, I'm going to hand it back to you for questions.
Thank you. I mean, thank you to all of this, the Hitachi Vantara team, for all of your stories, and what a great, diverse, interesting group of women, really amazing. And thank you for sharing your expertise on the tech industry. And now I'd love to open it up to questions, because we do have a bunch. And some are in the Q&A and some are in the chat. The Q&A question, one of the is, what have you found effective in terms of supporting and sponsoring other women in your places of work, especially in those workplaces where women are a minority? Anybody?
I can start off on that one. We have a women's group here in Hitachi that I think all leverage in different ways. And sometimes people come to this women's group. It's on kind of our team's channel. It's just a networking. Basically, we use it as a networking site. But LinkedIn and our internal networking women's organization and people that we meet. I met somebody from a different company that happens to work in a space that I'm very interested in. And I'm reaching out to her to ask her to be my mentor as I kind of start to branch into this new part of the business that I'm really interested in. So seek people out, find them, right? Talk to people, continue that communication and networking, because sometimes things don't always find you. You have to go looking for them. But you'll most likely find someone that's willing to help you.
We also have 2 hands raised and we only have 10 minutes. So Ellen Reeves, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? I see Ellen's box. Or Lena Crowley. She has her hand raised. Lena, when you, either of you can speak up, I'll just ask the next question until you're ready. How did you, so let's see, advice for mid-career switchers with no explicit tech experience except as a user or consumer? Anyone else? Maybe Susan? I saw you moving.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I think Alex hit on that as well. It's, you know, for that, again, it's back to your strengths. What are your strengths? What do you really enjoy, and what is your passion? And then if you look at technology companies, there's so many different aspects of the business and different functions of the business, be it, you know, finance, marketing, sales. There's of course technology. You know, Alex has a great, you know, flow of how she got in through executive administration. You know, for me, there was a lot of looking at project management. So what I've recommended to people as well coming out or with a very limited specific experience, get your PMO certification. You know, you can get your PMO certs and some base certifications going in, and every technology company, almost all companies in general, are hiring some sort of project manager, project coordinator, project facilitators. That's a great way to get your foot in the door as well until you kind of build up some of that experience. It's a skill set that you can go get certain certs. I know you have to show certain hours as you grow those certifications, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door.
Excellent. Anyone else, or should I? Salary negotiation. Just a general, how do you handle salary negotiation?
Hi. Maybe
Millie
I can
answer on that one.
Yeah, maybe I can take a stab at it, and you folks feel free to jump in. And again, I think it depends on, you know, salary negotiation external to the external company, or if it's internal. You know, it's always easier to go external, and especially if you are able to put a little bit work up front, and, you know, you're interviewing with multiple companies at the same time. You know, you can always say, you know, company A is giving me X amount. Can you give me the Y amount, right? So I think that's one way, very straightforward way, but it also requires a lot of your time, be able to manage the interview process and go through that flow, right? It takes a lot of time. Trust me, I've done it. and for internally, I think you can always, you know, be diligent about setting what are your goals and objectives with your manager, right? You always want to understand, you know, it doesn't have, you don't have to wait until the whole year end of your evaluation. You know, make that sort of a concerted effort to sync up with your manager once a month, or maybe, you know, once every 3 months, to understand, you know, how do you measure success? How do I measure my own success? What are going to be those success criteria, which is going to tell me that, yes, I've been successful. I'm able to meet my matrix, you know, for X number of months. And, you know, how do you add value to the organization? So always try to go with what your organization goals and objectives are, and kind of try to draw what you do today impacts the overall bottom line of your, company's organization goals, right? So that's another way to kind of look at it. And the third way is always to kind of, if you are friends with your colleagues, always have that kind of backdoor approach as to, hey, what do you think is, the comparable pay, in this company? You can always do that. There are a lot of social media channels like Blind or Glassdoor, which kind of lets out all of those salaries, ranges for you to work with, and you can always have that as one of the data. The other places I find is some of the women's group in Facebook, LinkedIn, where they actually publish salary across, different companies. So there's one other data point. So if you collate all of that and work with your manager, that's sort of your first step. And second step is, of course, are you putting in 100% of your work to really create a value for your company?
That's actually quite good advice. Excellent advice. We actually, the Women's Foundation of Boston had a career negotiation workshop that we did with the Big Sisters, which was extraordinarily impactful. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole skill that they really benefited from. Let's see, Alina, you're on the panel. Would you like to ask your question? I see you're not unmuted. I don't know if you want to ask your question or not, but you're up. Maybe Lena's not interested anymore. Let's see, any other questions? How can you find the right mentor who could advocate for you and help you grow? And how do you self-advocate?
I could take that one, or do you go first, Tammy?
Go ahead, Kimberly.
No,
Take the
you
floor.
go. I was just gonna say that I'm a product of really great mentors and advocates for my career. And sometimes when my mentors left the company or they took a new job, I felt like, wow, this is a tipping point. Do I want to stay with the company or leave? And that's always tough when your mentor or advocate leaves. But I had aligned myself with other mentors, and that helped me through those moments. And I would say that you don't sort of come up to someone and say, can you be my mentor? You could, but sometimes you can look at people in your organization who do what you might want to do and start having a relationship conversation with them about your interests and the skill areas you'd like to develop, and come at them as more of, I'd like to get your advice on something. And over time, through getting advice and coaching, I'll call people and say, hey, I have a situation. I want to get your perspective because I know you've handled it. And over time, they can become a mentor and an advocate and help you in what we just talked about, compensation discussions. They can be an advocate for you to help you get the raise. Sometimes that's what it takes. Even at your best efforts, you still need a champion for your cause. So I just wanted to mention that. But Tammy, you say what you're going to say about picking a mentor.
Well, that's great advice. And I was kind of on those same lines. Is one of the things for me, it goes both directions. There's a young woman I work with, and we become friends. And part of that process, I've, help her with advice and be open. And one of the things about a mentor, you want to have some trust. You want to be able to feel like you have the ability to ask any question and get real feedback. And, if I've actually had a mentor for many years who's actually male, so it doesn't have to be, another female. It can be both. And you can have multiple mentors as well. They may have other strong suits. Some may be stronger in more management style. Some may be on the technical style. But like Kimberly said, you definitely want to be someone, if you have questions about negotiation or your salary or things, they can give you advice. It's one of those things you don't normally talk about actual numbers, but you can talk about the negotiation, or maybe they, if you want to have them talk to their direct manager. But being a mentor and having a mentor is very important to your career too. Like I said, it's that trust and someone that you can go to when you really want to have a conversation about your career path, questions, maybe a meeting, something came up and you really want to talk to someone personally about it.
Well, thank you, ladies. Yeah, studies have shown that mentorships have really big impacts on men and women. They actually have greater impact on women. So getting a mentor is really, really, really impactful, and I would strongly encourage it. So unfortunately, we're running out of time because there's a lot of more questions. And if you email us, we're happy to send your questions to this amazing group of women who took this time out of their busy day to join us and share their words of wisdom. And we are so appreciative because this webinar series for the women and girls in Greater Boston is extraordinarily impactful and helpful to them and to us. Before you go, I ask you to please take a moment to complete our event survey. It will only take about a minute and it should pop up in the chat right now or in a second. So, and also I want to shout out to Alex for helping organize this from day one. She reached out to me long ago and it's been really great. So thank you all. Please stay tuned for our next webinar, which will be announced shortly. And we're excited to continue this series, which has been awesome. So thank you all, ladies.
Thank you. And Christina, one more thing I just wanted to say to everyone. The women and I have said we're more than welcome and open to sharing our email address with attendees. If anybody has any follow-up questions or want to connect with us directly, we'd love to talk to you more. So
awesome. Well, we'll do that. We'll share that information. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.